Okay, we are back at it. Today's daf is Masechtas Nedarim, Daf Yud Tes Amud Aleph. The last daf we actually finished up until 7 lines from the bottom. The rest of the daf was a Mishnah, so it was a pretty long Mishnah. We learned the Mishnah. Let's recap the Mishnah. Basically, the Mishnah spoke about that if somebody makes a neder and with a lashon, uses a language that you can interpret in two different ways. So we say stam nedarim if the guy does not define what it means and explain his words, then we say stam nedarim lahachmir and perusham lahakol. However, if the guy starts explaining what he meant, then we go lahakol. We'll say it's not a neder. So the Mishnah gave a couple examples. If somebody says this object to me will be alai kabasar maliach or kiyei nesach. So if he means b'shal shamayim, then it's aser. Meaning if he means there should be like a carbon, then the carbon's a good neder, be matas and a neder. But if he means yayin nesach or avodas kacham, that kind of stuff, that would be aser. Another example was if somebody says harei alai kecherim, if he means cherim shamayim, that's given to Bedek Abayis is aser, because that's something that, again, you give matas on that, because it's something that a person makes aser. If it means kecherim shal koyanim, then it's mutter, because again, that has nothing to do with someone who matvis. And the third case was if somebody says harei alai kamaiser. So if he means ma'aser behema, it's aser. If he means shal goyren, if he means ma'aser, it gets taken off of the goyren of your crop, it's mutter. And if it's stam, then it's aser, because we say he means lahachmer. There's another case. It says harei alai ketruma. So does it mean lishka, that you bring the karbonas from? Do we mean the fund that they put away for karbonas, and it's aser because it's a davar another, or do we mean truma, gedola of a goyren, and therefore be mutter? And if it says stam, so we said it's aser. That was Rameir. Rabbi Yehuda came up at the end of the Mishnah. And Mishnah brought down. Rabbi Yehuda says stam truma. So it depends where you are. That was Rabbi Yehuda's chap. It depends where you are. If you say stam truma, if you're in Eretz Yehuda, then it's aser, because being that it's a place that's close in distance to Yerushalayim, and people are familiar with trumas halishka. So when they say stam truma, they mean to say trumas halishka. However, in the Gol, it's going to be mutter, because Anshe Gol do not recognize trumas halishka. They don't know what it means even. They're not familiar with it. And then stam charamim, he said Yehuda is mutter, because again it's close to Yerushalayim and it means chamri koyanim. However, in the Gol it's going to be aser, since they probably mean chamri shamayim. So that was the Mishnah. And even if the guy says, no, I didn't mean chamri shamayim, you say, no, that's Dvarim Shabalev. That's something that you thought in your heart. You didn't say that. So Dvarim Shabalev, Einam Dvarim. That is the Kesef Mishnah says. Okay. Zok Tehelig Gemara now. 7 lines from the bottom on the Chesem Abayis. So Frag the Gemara about Tanan, I will learn in the Mishnah, Tyrus, Mishnayis, Tyrus, Perek Dalet, Mishnah Yud Beis, Safik Naziris. If somebody does not know if his Naziris was Chal, Lahakol. The halacha is you make all and you say it's not Chal at all, the Naziris. And so the Gemara's Kasha is, L'chayer Naziris works Midin Neder, right? That's what you see all along so far, what we've learned in Masechtas Nedarim. And Naziris works Midin Neder. So Ebezoi, how come I stam nedarim yamachmir and my suffering naziris? You see the Mishnah Perek Daled, Mishnah Yud Beis in Tahiris they Yemeko, and the Gemara Amar Bzeir like Kasha. It's not Shaver. Why? Because Rebbe Lezer, the Mishnah Tahiris is going to Rebbe Lezer, which is Mekel, and our Mishnah is going to Rabbanan. So they're arguing on each other. Zakta Gemara, the Tanya, we will see this. The Brisa says, "Hamakdash chayasoi vehemtoi." If somebody is makdash his chaya or his behema, hikdash es hakoi. The halacha is hikdash es hakoi, or is that kvi? The halacha is that he's makdash also the kvi. So there's this is a shaila and kvi. There's a suffix that has a din like a chaya or like a behema. And this guy, he was makdish his chaya and his behema. So halacha is that misafik is kaddish since he has a mind to makdish even what the suffix he included when he said he's being makdish his chaya and his behema. Rebbe Lezer says, however, loy hikdish sakvi. Why? So because he only has a mind. The reason is because Rebbe Lezer says I only have a mind to makdish what's vada chaya and behema. But being that a kvi is a suffix, so therefore, he would say he does not have a mind to makdish that. So here we find the machlekes, Rebbe Lezer and Rabbanan. So the Gemara is saying now like this: Manda Amar Mamoinei Ma'ayol. The Manda it says Mamoinei Ma'ayol Sfeika. The Manda says that he means even kvi because being that it's a suffix, he includes that when he says chayin behema. So gufei nami ma'ayol. So therefore, he brings even his guf into a suffix. And when he's noider or is mikal naziris, he has a mind, even the thing that's a suffix. And therefore, we say that when he says a lashon that's not clear, or you can explain it in two different ways, we say go lahachimer. So that would be like the Rabbanan. Umanda Amar Beleza says that he did not mean to be makdish kvi because he's not trying to bring in a suffix. He only meant things that are vadai. So that Mandama would hold that just like he holds kvi is not kaddish, so he would hold gufi nami kolshkein deloy ma'al sfeika. So kolshkein, when a guy says a lashon nazirus, that is a suffix, like the Mishnah in Tahiris. We don't know if it's chal. We're going to say that it's not chal medin neder. That's Rebbe Lezer. Because we say a guy does not have a mind that the nazir should be chal suffix, and therefore b'stam nedarim for that matter. He would say same halacha stam nedarim. He would say lahakol, not like our Mishnah, which would go like the Rabbanan, not like Rebbe Lezer. That's the mahalach the Gemara is going on there. So Amar la Abaye. Abaye says like this: Ramai kimta l'safik naziris lahakol. Who's this going like this? Always says something naziris lahakol. Mission tire. It's Rebbe Lezer. It's going like Rebbe Lezer. Say aim a seifa. Let's say in the seifa. What does the seifa say? Safak b'charis. If we have a safik, if it's a b'char, we have a newborn animal. And we're not sure if it's a b'char. For example, if twins were born, a zachar and a nekeva, and we don't know which one was born first. So we don't know if the male animal that was born is a b'char, because we don't know. Maybe the nekeva came out first. So the safek b'char is ega b'chari adam, saiba b'char adam, which you have to be poider, you have to redeem with 5 salam, like the halacha says, the mitzvah in the Torah. But echad b'chari behema and saiba b'chari behema. Bain Tameya, which is Petach Amar, which you are redeemed with a seh, and the seh is given to the kohen. Bain Tahira, Saivitza, Bachor Behim Tahira, which the halacha is that you give it straight to the kohen. The halacha is, says the Brisa, Hamoitzi Mechaveroi Olav Araya. Says the Mishnah, the Sefer, Hamoitzi Mechaveroi Olav Araya. The kohen that's coming to take away this animal, the Bachor, from the owner, that's a Yid, he has to bring a raya that it's a bechor, and it's not mutal on the yid to bring a raya to say that I'm not going to give it to the kohen because I don't think it's a bechor and I have to bring a raya. No, hamoitzi mechavel a raya. The kohen's a moitzi mechay gavna. He has to bring a raya. But Tanya along, we learned to the brayso on this Mishnah. The asur migizav avoda. These bechoros which are sveikis, which are left over at the yid's property, because the savik, the halacha is asur migizav avoda. They are asur, and you're not allowed to shear their hair, cut their hair, and you're not allowed to work them. Just like a bechor, Just like a Bechor has a din because it's Kaddish, you're not allowed to cut it here, and you're not allowed to make it work because it's Kaddish. So what do we see from this? That a Suffolk Bechor has a din like a Bechor, and it's Kaddish. And we see not like the Rebbe Lezer that says that Makom Suffolk, like by Naziris, Kedusha is Nachal. So Ibizoi, how can you say the Rishon Mishnah is like Rebbe Lezer? You want to tell me the Rishon Mishnah is like Rebbe Lezer? It says by Suffolk Kedusha is Nachal. You see in the Seifa that it's Asar B'Gizah Avodah Suffolk Bechor, and it is Chal. So how does that shtim? How does that make sense? And the Gemara, Amar Lei, Amai Kamidamis, Kedusha Haba Meilel, Kedusha Haba B'Diadam. So Reb Zera told him, what are you comparing the ratio to Seifa? The Seifa was Kedusha's Bechor, that comes by itself. The animal is born, if it's born a Bechor, it's born with Kedusha. But the Kedusha Haba B'Diadam, that is Naziris. That comes al yidei, a person accepting on himself Naziris. And it's telling in his das, whatever he had in mind. So then Rebbe Lezer says that we say a guy does not have a mind, Sveikas, because you're the one that brings the Naziris on yourself. However, by Kedusha comes by itself, and it's not totally in a person's mind, so then Avada Rebbe Lezer agrees that it's Chali with the suffix. So you want to know why in the Seifa, if it's a Saf Kedusha, why is there halacha? It's also B'Gizah Avodah. Teretz is it's a Kedusha Haba Meilel. So the Gemara now is going to go on to ask a different kasha on Reb Zera. Reb Zera is the one that says the Mishnah told that by the Safek Naziris, he wanted to say the Mishnah is going to Reb Lezer, and our Mishnah is like the Rabbanan. So let's just put a few halachas out there before we go further. The pasuk says in Vayikra Perak Yud Aleph pasuk Lamed Aleph, V'chol mashka asher yishaseh b'chol kli yitma. Any mashka, any drink that you drink in a kli, in a utensil, yitma, and there's a machlekes hanam how you darshan this pasuk. And there's three opinions, there's three shittas. One is that mashkim, a liquid, is makabel tumah min atayra, and it's also, if it touches something else, it's matameh. And the pasuk means to say that a mashk gets tameh, and it could be matameh other things that it touches. That's one sheet. That's what the pasuk means. The second shita is that minatayra mashkim, a liquid, is makabel tumah. However, it is not matame something else when it touches it. And the pasuk that says b'chol kli yitma means that the kli is going to be matame the mashka, but it's not going to be matame to it's not going to be matame the mashka that the mashka can matame other things. About that, minatayra is not working. Chacham was just good, so it's only the rabbanon. The mashka can matame other things. That's the second opinion. The third shita is that mashkim is not makabel toma at all minatayra. And this that the pasuk says, "V'chol mashka shasa b'chol kli." Now, what does it mean that the pasuk saying that the liquid that you drink in a kli should get tamei? It means that mashka that comes on food is machshire to makabel toma. So food could only get tummy only if liquid came on it, and now the food can makabel tuma from something else, but not from the liquid. And this that there is a din tuma on mashke, that is only the rabbanan. So those are the three shittas. So now, fracting more Eli Kasha, you want to know if there's a question, Hakasha. If there's a kasha on Reb Zera shtickle, that he said, this is the kasha. Why? Because the Sefta says in Tyrus Parakeh, Safek mashkim litame tame. If you have mashkim that you're not sure if it got tuma on it. So if the question is, if the suffix that you're having is, if the mashkim themselves got tamei, the halacha is that it's tamei. Why? because since Tumas Mashkim is Doiraisa, so therefore you want to be more Machimer about it. But if the suffix is L'Tami Acherim, you want to know if the Mashka is L'Tama other things, that's a suffix that arouse. Then Allah is tar. Why? Because Doiraisa, Mashkim is not, liquid is not Matami something else. That's only Darabanan. Being that it's Darabanan, we say Sam for Darabanan Lahakol. Divrei Meir, that is a Shita Meir. And so too, Rebbe Lezer said, like the Shita Meir, that if it comes up a suffix, a mashka, if it got tamei, because Deraisa, you say, okay, make a tamei, suffix Deraisa l'chama. However, if the suffix is, if mashka is matame something else, being that that's Derabanan, suffix Derabanan l'hakol, that's Remeir Rebbe Lezer, that's what the Gemara says. Now, affecting Gemara, be sfirli Rebbe Lezer l'tamei tamei. Is it yitachin to say Rebbe Lezer holds that mashke is metame misafik, becomes tame misafik? Well, Tanya we learned in the Brayso Rebbe Lezer imein tumala mashkin kolikar. Rebbe Lezer says in a Brayso that there's no tumah minat Torah at all on mashke, not for them to get tame and not for them to metame other things. Teida, I'll bring you a raya. Shari Heyed Yosef ben Yezer Ish Tzreida says Rebbe Lezer, I'll bring you a raya. Shari Heyed Yosef ben Yezer Ish Tzreida al Ayal Kamsa. Yosef ben Yezer he witnessed Ish Tzreida. He witnessed on Ayal Kamsa. It was a grasshopper its name was Ayal. That was the name of that type of grasshopper. So he paskined dachon, that it's tahar, that grasshopper, and it's mutter to eat. Ve'al mashkin b'sbetchaye, another thing he witnessed on that he paskined, he said, liquid that's found in the place where the shech karbonas, in the Beis Hamikdash, for instance, what kind of liquid? Blood that comes from animals that they shecht in the Beis Hamikdash, and water that they used, let's say they had to use water on the Mizbeach for whatever. He paskined also dachan, that they are tar. Those waters are tar, and they're not makabel tumah. So what do you see from this? You see, Rebbe Lezer held that mashkim is not makabel tumah minat Torah. It's only d'Rabbanan, and they were not geyser tumah in the Beis Hamikdash. So ibezai. So ibezai, what the Gemara is trying to say is like this: that right now we have a steer in what Rebbe Lezer says, because right now we're saying that the waters of Beis Hamikdash he was a mekel, and the Gemara just wanted to say before the Rebbe Lezer holds. The Gemara said v'chein ha'Rebbe Lezer omer kedavarav like Remeir, that suffix mashka, but suffix mashka atuma, you say it's lechonma. So the Gemara's understanding that pshat is that steer you can answer and say that Rebbe Lezer maybe holds even by suffix or Rabbanon. You could say that what? That even that Rameir was saying this is more Rebbe Lezer, not that it's Derai. So maybe he held over there, even Star Rabbanon, he was Machmir in that case, by suffix Mashkin. And why is how come in the waters and the dam of the Beis Hamikdash? How come over there he was Mekel? If it's a suffix Rabbanon, so that wouldn't be sure. He paskined on the mashka in Beis Hamikdash. He said that it's tar. That was Allah. However, when it's a suffix, he said if you want, you can say suffix Rabbanon lahachmir. Maybe that's Rebbe Lezer held. But the Gemara's question is. This Reb Zera said that the Mishnah says Safkan Naziris Lahakol is going like Rebbe Lezer. So, L'cher, what do you mean? Safak Naziris is Daraisa. So, if Rebbe Lezer holds his Mekel by Safak Naziris, then how could he say, why would he be Machmir by Safak Tumo if it's only Darabanan? Doesn't make any sense. So now the Gemara goes on to explain that Hanicha L'Shmuel. This kasha is takashver according to Shmuel that says that the edus of Yosef ben Yezer that said mashkim esudchai is dachon, that it's tar, it's only tamei acherim, because that's only the Rabbanon. Aval Thomas Atzman yesh behen, but it has tumah. It does. Yosef ben Yezer did hold that it gets tumah even with mashkim esudchai because that's Tumas Mashkin was Dairaisa. So then it's very understood why Rabbi Lezer said that Safek Mashkin Tame is Safek Mashkin, like we're talking about the Mashkin getting Tame, it's Tame, the halacha is because it's a Safek Tame Dairaisa, and therefore you have to be Machmer. El Rav, the Omar. So that's all Shmuel, but according to Rav, that says the Chain Mamish, the Chon Mamish, that even the Mashke themselves are Tumei because he holds that Mashke is not Makabal Tumei at all, Dairaisa, then Ma'ikal Amimah, what's Pshat that Rebbe Lezer was Machmir by a Safek Tumei D'Rabbanan? And how could you say, like Reb Zera, the Rebbe Lezer's Meikal, B'Safek Naziris Dairaisa, if you see over here that he's Machmir by Safek Tumei D'Rabbanan? It doesn't make sense. So therefore, because of this, the Gemara is Madcha Reb Zera's teretz that the Mishnah is going like Rebbe Lezer by Safek Naziris, because it would not stem with the Rebbe Lezer of the Mishka of the Mishnah in Tahiris Parakeh that says Safek Mashkin Latame. Safek Mashkin Latame is going to be Tame. So we're back to the original kasha that by Stam Nedarim we say Yemachmir, and by Naziris we see the Mishnah Dyer says Lahakol. What's the Tagapshat? We have to come up with another Tarasan to answer the stira. Zok the Gemara Elaha, the Mishnah Dyer that's Mekel by Safek Naziris is Rabbi Yehuda. That's Mekel by a Safek. Vaha, the Mishnah Nedarim that says Yemachmir is going like Rabbi Shimon. That's Machmir. Explains the Gemara, the Tanya. We learned in the Tosefta Nazir Parak B is Alachates. Harini Nazir Yesh Bakri. If somebody says, I am a Nazir, if there is in this Kri, in this pile of Tfuah, of wheat, Hazeh Meyakor. So I'm a Nazir if there's a Meyakor in this pile, a Halach. And he went to inspect the pile. He found that it got stolen or lost. And now he doesn't know if there was 100 kor in there or not, a measurement of 100 kor. So Rabbi Yehuda Matir. Rabbi Yehuda says if he made Naziris, in this case, he was Matir the Naziris. Why? Because he only had in mind to be a Nazir only if it's determined that this Kri has Me'ikurim. But since it wasn't, he was no way to find out, so the Naziris is not Chal. Rabbi Shimon says, Misafik, it's Aser. Why? Because maybe there was 100 in this, and in the middle of the Naziris is Chal. So come to that what? The Machlikas Rabbi Yehuda and Shimon is a Naziris Chal Misafik, right? Because in this case it's a Safik. We don't know if there was 100 or got lost or got stolen. Rabbi Yehuda says he's not Mischavin, Misafik, to accept the Naziris upon himself, and therefore it's Mutter. Rabbi Shimon says no. So the Mishnah that says the Safik Naziris Lahakol, that will be going Kashitas Rabbi Yehuda. That is this Gemara's Taretz. And this is what we say, Stam Nedarim Lahachmir is going like Rabbi Shimon. So now the Gemara is going to ask a stira. Rami Rabbi Yehuda. I have a stira in this Rabbi Yehuda that says over here that he's matir and he's meiko. Mir Rabbi Yehuda loy ma'al inish nafshel sveiko. Does Rabbi Yehuda say a guy does not have a mind, does not want to accept on himself for naziris to bechal and the safek? Very many ask you a stira. It says in the Mishnah Yud Chesed Beis, right? That's the Mishnah we just had. Rabbi Yehuda Eimer, Stam Truma. Yehuda says if somebody's matvis his neder and Stam Truma, and it does not explain what he means when he says Stam Truma. Stam Truma. So we don't know if he means Trumas Halishka, the neder Chal, Trumas Goyren, which neder would not be Chal. The halacha is, Yehuda says, Bi Yehuda, it's Aser, because we say he means Trumas Halishka, because close to Yerushalayim, and they're familiar with Trumas Halishka there. And it's in Gol, it's Mutter, because the Ein Makirim is Trumas Halishka. They don't know what Trumas Halishka is in Gol. Right? So that's what the Mishnah says. So the Gemara is Medayik, Taima, the reason why the neder is not Chal the Ein Makirim, that's only because in Gol, they don't recognize Trumas Halishka. So that's why it's not Chal Ha Makirin, but if they are familiar with Trumas Halishka and Gol, and they would make a neder on Lashon Truma, then it would be Aser, even though their kavanah would be for Trumas Gerim. But since they're familiar with it, the neder would work. The Gemara is trying to be Daiger Yehuda. while it's Stam Nedarim L'Hachmer. So there we go. You have a steer of Yehuda. Now it's Mashma of Yehuda Stam Nedarim L'Hachmer. We just brought Rabbi Yehuda Stam Naziris L'Hakol. So Amar Rava answers no. Avada Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda holds Safek Nedarim L'Hachmer, like you want to say in the Mishnah. And the reason why Gabi Kri, by the case of 100 kurim and his nignav avad, over there Rabbi Yehuda is matir. Why? Because kasavar kol sveikoi chamer mavade, kol sveikoi chamer mavade lema'ana shel sveika. The reason why, in that case by Nazir, if a guy said, I'm going to accept the Naziris upon myself if there's 100 kurim in this pile of wheat, and it turns out it was stolen, so now we don't know. So the reason why Yehuda is matir over there is because since a suffix is more chomer than a vadai, he does not want to bring himself into a suffix. In other words, in a case where if when we have a suffix, a guy's going to have to be machmer on himself more than if it would be a vadai neder, so then he doesn't want the neder to be chal at all. And since by a suffix in Naziris is more, a suffix in Naziris is more of a chumrah than a vadai Naziris, so therefore we say the guy does not have in mind, does not want to makal on himself Naziris. So the Gemara is going to explain now why the suffix in Naziris more chumrah than a vadai Naziris. What does that mean? It's like the Gemara, do you gav nazir vadai? Because in nazir vadai, the halacha is migaleach. He has to cut his hair after the 30 days are up. Maybe carbon, and he has to bring a carbon, v'nechal, and it gets eaten, the carbon, and then he's allowed to drink wine. However, al sveikoi, on a suffix nazir, is only suffix l'matzah migaleach. He does not cut his hair. Why? Because giluach and the other things that are mutter are only at the akravas carbon, are only mutter at the akravas carbon. And since one of the karbanos of a nazir is a chatas, that does not come as suffix, so therefore, on the tzad that the Naziris was not chal, it comes out he's bringing chulun lazara, so he can't bring a chatas because it might be chulun lazara. And since the suffix in Naziris is garin that he can't bring his karbonis and finish his Naziris, therefore we say he does not have a mind for the Naziris to be chal. Very, very good explanation, very clear explanation. Rava is saying that why there's a difference between Stam Naziris Lahakol, the Mishnah in Tyrus, and this that we're medayik Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah, that's Stam Nedarim L'Hachmer. So, Amar Leir of Huna bar Yehuda Rava. Huna bar Yehuda is going to ask on the teretz to Rava. Amar Hareini Nazir Olam. If a guy says, I'm going to be a Nazir Olam, I'm going to be a Nazir forever, if there is 100 core in this pile of Tvor, and there's no way to measure it. So what's the halacha? Because in this case, you're not going to have, this case is going to be different. Why? Because in this case, there's no extra chumrah on a suffix. Why? Because even if you say in Naziris is chal b'vadois, in this case, he would never cut his hair because he's saying he's in a Nazir Olam. A Nazir Olam never gets to cut his hair. And since the brisa of Kri, 100 kores said Stam, l'chayr is talking about all cases in Naziris. And therefore, and since we see who just says would not be a Nazir, so you see it's not because of Sveika is more Chomer than a Vadai. Rather, he holds that you have to make on a suffix Naziris. So if the word is that he holds you make on a suffix Naziris, then he back to for original Kasha. L'chayra, Stam by Nedarim, you should also say suffix Nedarim is Lahakol, just like suffix Naziris Lahakol. So Rava told him Amalei like this. Rava told her Huna Yehuda Nazir Olam Nami. No, it's not true. Nazir Olam also, there's something that his suffix is chamer than a vadai, although he's not going to do guluach. Why? The ilu Vadai, if it's a vadai hichbit sa'aroi, if his hair just gets out of control so long, the halacha is meikal, betar. He's allowed to cut his hair a little bit with the razor, which is considered a shinu. It's doing it a little different way. Maybe shalosh behemos, and he's allowed to bring 3 animals for his taglachas, for cutting his hair. He kamater somewhat. V'ilu sveiko, however, in a suffix nazir elam, lo, he does not have the skula. Why? Because he can't bring a chatas again, because of chulin la'azara. The tzad of the suffix, the zir is nachal, it's chulin la'azara. So ebezoi, when he's makabel himself as ziris oilam, he does. If there's any tzad suffix, we say avaiter, he doesn't have a mind to be makabel himself as ziris. Zok the Gemara weiter. Amar harini zer shimshin. The Gemara is going to continue on this topic. Amar harini zer shimshin. If he says in the same case, if there's a guy says if there's 100 kurim in this pile of tavua, then I'll be in a zer shimshin. And it got stolen or it got lost, and now we don't know. It's a suffix. Mai, what's the halacha? Will Rabbi Yehuda agree that there's going to be a nazir suffix? Why? So it seems nazir shimshin, even if it was a vadai, he can never, even b'shina, he can't even cut his hair. It's like the most chamer naziris. So in this case, l'chir, the suffix is not more chamer. So Ibezoi, what would be the only reason why Reb Shimon would say that Nazir Shimshin, that by a suffix you be Mekel? It's only because of suffix Naziris. So Ibezoi, back to the Kasha, why is it different than a Nedarim? So Rava says, no, Amar Lei, Nazir Shimshin Loi Tanya. Nazir Shimshin is not written about B'chlal in the Brisa. Meaning there's no mashmois from the Nazir we're talking about the Brisa that includes Nazir Shimshin also. Rather, the Brisa is just talking about Stam Naziris. So in Stam Naziris, we could say, what's the whole Brisa only meant like to be Huda because the suffix is more chamer than the Vadai. Amar Le, so Rav Huna continued telling Rava of Amar Rava Barahava, Tanya Nazir Shimshin. Rather, Barahava said, what do you mean? The Brisa says before, Shimon is by Nazir Shimshin. How can you tell me it's not talking about Nazir Shimshin? And since by Nazir Shimshin, you can't tell me the reason the suffix chaver is more chamer than the vadai, is muchach that the reason is al suffix naziris. So I back to this nira. So Amarlei, Rava told Rav Huna, Tanya. It's like you're right. If you taka have such a brisa that says that's talking about Nazir Shimshin, then it's taka shver, and I don't have a teretz from you. You taka see Rabbi Yehuda held stam nedarim lahachmir. He said, it's shver, you're right. You slug me up, I have nothing to say. Ravashi says that no, lo ilam, I'll tell you that only in a place where you have a suffix nazir is more chamer than the vade, that's where Yehuda says in Naziris and Nachal Masafik. And this price that Rabbi brings that Nazir Shimshin or Yehuda is Mekel, Rabbi Yehuda Mishmer B'Tarfin. It's not Rabbi Yehuda, that's Rabbi Yehuda Mishmer B'Tarfin. But he himself, Avad, he holds that you can't be Mekel by Nazir Shimshin. You're right. But this thing we saw, Rabbi Yehuda, that was Yehuda B'Tarfin or someone else. The Tanya, we learned that Bryce and Nazir Lamdal Beis, that the case is over there that if two people were going on a way and one guy came two people were walking and one guy came from the opposite direction, and one of these two people said that I will be a Nazir if this person coming towards us is so and so, is Chaim, and his friend says I will be a Nazir if this is not that Chaim, if it's not Chaim. So Yehudim Shemar Tarfin says Ein Echem Nazir, none of them are Nazir. even the one that turns out he's right. Let's say it was Chai. Why? Since the pasuk says Bamidbar Perak Vav pasuk Beis Ish or Isha Kiyafli, it says a lashon Kiyafli Nedarim, which means that Naziris is not chal only when you accept it on yourself clearly, without any conditions. And since he said, I'm only going to be a Nazir if this guy is Chaim, that doesn't have a din Naziris. It's not considered proper lashon in order for Naziris to be chal. So therefore, if you accept Naziris on yourself, therefore the same thing huadin, if a guy says, I'm only going to be a Nazir if this pile of tefua has 100 core, so even if it's true that it had 100 core, then the Naziris won't be chal. So you want to know why Yehuda says, by the case of Suffolk of core, why he says that it's he's lahak, he goes lahakol. It's not because he holds Suffolk Nedarim lahakol. It's because he holds Suffolk Naziris lahakol. It's because he holds that Naziris cannot be chal on a tanai because nit Naziris el lafla. Very geshmak ataretz. So for the Gemara, if that's not the reason of Yehuda, because you don't have a flaw, my area nignav avad. Why does the Brisa say that the case is talking about a kur, that is nignav avad? Let it just say it can't be chal, finished, because you're saying if it has 100 kur, why do you have to say that it got lost or stolen and you can't verify it? Ella, and for the Gemara, that you're right, even if it was not stolen, the Naziris and not chal. But the reason why it's said Nigdav and Neva is coming to tell you that according to Reb Shimon, you would say the Afal Gav, the Nigdav Sha'avad, Kasavar Ma'ayel Neshafselis Fake. It's coming to tell you a Chiddush in the opposite shita that says that the Naziris is chal. So even if you can't verify it, they're saying no, this guy still brings himself into a suffix. So it's coming to tell you the opposite chiddush. Later, Shimon that argues and says it is chal. Zok tehilug Gemara weiter. Rabbi Yehuda says stam truma be Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said stam truma in Yehuda is aser. But go, however, that the Anshi Golo are not familiar with truma. That people make aser, which is trumas halishka, which you bring kavanas from, then it would not be a neder. It would be mutter. Frag the Gemara. Ha, Gemara's medayik and lashon mishnah. Ha makirin. But if Ajigal would be familiar with this, and there would be matvis and the lashon truma, regular truma of trumas halishka, then it would be asurin. Alma, you see sveika lechumra. So you see Rabbi Yehuda holds sveika lechumra. So ibazoi ema seifa. Say in the seifa it says stam charim Yehuda mutarin. It says stam charim Yehuda's mutarin gol asur. Why? Because einan shegol makirin is chermi kohen. Not familiar with chermi kohen. And therefore, when the Anshegol say charamim, what do they mean? They mean chermi gavaya, which the Torah already answered. So ha makirin be medayik there also. Ha makirin mutarim. Al masvei you see there be mutter. Al masvei kalukula. So you see charetz astira. You see svei kalukula. So what do we have here? We have a stira. These two cases, because one case when medayik the ha makirin, it's going to be aser. Hamakirin is going to be aser. Why? Because you go sfeika lechumra. If you suffix what they mean is sfeika lechumra. That's the first case of suffix truma begolo. And the second case that we're bringing from the Mishnah, that we're saying that stam charamim gol is going to be aser, hamakirin is going to be mutter. That suffix you're seeing going lekula. So Abaye says the Torah is like this. The Vadar Yehuda holds Safek Nedarim lahachmer. And Oibazoi l'shitasa you'd say even by charamim would be aser because we say they had a mind for Charmi Gavoya, even if they are familiar with Charmi Koyanim. And the Seifa that is mashma that Charam make only mutter, that's not going to Rabbi Yehuda. That's Rabbi Elazar Tzadiki that holds Samnik Darm L'Hakol. It's a whole different shita. This that we see in the Seifa with the mashma that you're going to go stam Charam. You would say Safik Darm L'Hakol by Charamim. Zok the Gemara, the Tanya. I'll bring you a raya that's going like Yehuda, but Rabbi Yehuda, who's this? Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Elazar Tzaddik. I'll bring you a raya. It's going to be Rabbi Elazar Tzaddik, not Rabbi Yehuda. Why? Because the Brisa says Rabbi Yehuda is stam trum Yehuda asur be asur and gal be mutter. Rabbi Elazar Tzaddik oimer stam charam by gal asurin, but in Yehuda will be mutter. Why? Because we say there was chaven for chamei kayanim. So you see in the Brisa clearly brings her Rabbi Elazar Tzaddik by charamim. So that would make sense that it's a whole different shida. It's not Rabbi Yehuda, but maybe you don't have a stira from the halacha that Rabbi Yehuda says that's mashma b'daik and misha by anshe gol gabi truma to the halacha of charamim.